26, and you're just like, whoa, slow down. You like throw so much at you, you can't even keep
Hey
it.
folks, it is April 20th, and today we are going to start our lecture series on the state government, and we're going to start off with a discussion over the Constitution. I'm using our PowerPoint slides on the Constitution as the basis for our discussion, and I'm going to save them as a PDF and post them on the Google Classroom at the end of the class day. Keep in mind, we only have 2 meetings this week, one today, one Thursday. Friday is supposed to be the fun run day and a half day, right? We leave at 12:30.
So if it's
This Friday.
everybody, that would mean that we get out at.
That's very logically not going to happen, though. So, yeah, I'm
But it
sorry.
makes sense.
It does make sense.
I'm
But
not just kidding.
for the part of like community and school building or the poor or whatever, no, wait, the money's going to the school. Okay, so it's I don't know, but it's 100% storm chance. So
100%?
100%. So
Jeez.
it's gonna be an interesting
For
fun
when?
run.
Let's do
Friday.
it.
Yeah, I don't know what part of Friday. Maybe it's in the afternoon and we won't care,
Why are we talking about Friday?
because it's the fun run day and a half day. So
Oh, yeah.
and it's a half day. But the thing is, school calendars can only be changed by a school board. And so even if the fun run's ruined, we can't just on the fly change the calendar and say it's a full day all of a sudden, all right? So
Yeah.
I don't know how that work out. We'll probably just have to do it another
I
day.
mean, if it's a
Like on a full
storm,
day.
I don't think I'm coming to school.
What do you, it's lightning.
I mean, there's not going to be
Yeah.
regular
You're not gonna come to
classes.
school because of.
No one's planned
Yes.
regular classes, no one. So there's not supposed to be anything academic.
But what if the fun run's canceled?
I don't know then. Nobody told me. They don't check the weather. They're not gonna know until that morning, I bet.
Is that an A or B day?
It's neither. We're not supposed to meet for like regular classes, so
I mean, I wanna go to Miss Martinez's room.
For what, 10 minutes?
yeah, I don't know where everybody's going first period. My first period's always the same, A day or B day, so it doesn't affect me or the 9th graders or the 10th graders. They always go to the same room. But yeah, you older folks, I don't know. I don't know about the senior citizens. I don't know where you'd meet. So I don't know. I don't think they could do the fun run in the gym because it's supposed to have the color powder junk.
Wait, it's raining? It's gonna rain Friday?
Yeah. Well,
Wow, you haven't had
Where have you been?
I don't know. I don't know what time it's supposed to come down, right? They're saying 100%. That doesn't mean it's really 100%, but it means it's pretty likely. If they're like brave enough to say that much, it's probably going to happen at some point. I just say be ready.
Whoa.
I personally really wanted to go through, like I don't know. I don't want to give up. There's a couple of classes I really got to get through content. All right, hey, let's go ahead and begin. So, purposes of the Texas State Constitution. Antonio, put the remote up, man. Come on, you have some patience. All right. So, providing legitimacy. This is one of the purposes of a constitution. When governed, believe a government has the right to make and enforce laws. So, this is the difference between, like, say, a dictatorship and what people see as an authentic government, right? So like a drug cartel can have certain governmental features, and some of the communities they're in, they might seem pretty positive. They might help fund a hospital. They might help keep the streets paved and the playground running fine. However, nobody chose these people to be in charge of their infrastructure.
But you're not gonna go against them.
And they're not going to go against, yeah, it's because it's based on fear. That's the old ploy of tyrants. You don't rule by law or love. You've got the biggest weapons, and you will
Ruled
use.
by men with guns.
It's might
or
by
swords.
it's might make right. Might makes right.
I
That's
mean,
what
honestly, that's just how the world works.
you can. But whenever people have a belief system, and if that belief system is based upon law that comes from something more legitimate than the government itself, it's supposed to work out. So. Organizing government, the Constitution also provides institutions, offices, selection process, and relations between officials. So the nuts and bolts, how things work. So the Constitution outlines, as you've seen in the U.S. Constitution, methods of election, the powers of the different branches of government. Well, the state constitution does the same thing for the state government. Providing power. Constitution grants specific powers to specific institutions. The Texas state constitution is known for being made to be very limiting on government power. That has to do with, first off, it has to do with just Texas values. But the second part, it has to do in complete revolt against what was called the carpetbagger government after the U.S. Civil War and Reconstruction. You go potty? Okay, go ahead. Yeah. Because usually people do this. They do this. They do the crisscross applesauce.
I didn't know we were still doing that. That's
What is
Yeah,
that?
we're still doing it.
Well, I feel like
I
it's
see the
like
grown-ups do it.
I've never
And they'll
seen
they'll
that
like do
before.
the TT dance.
I've never seen that before.
This?
this.
I've never seen this.
This has been a thing since like.
I know, it's
eighth
only here.
I've never
It's only
seen
here.
that.
It's like cross your legs, right? Like, where am I gonna go?
Okay,
So-
well, I've been going here since sophomore year and nobody ever told me.
I've been
I'm
doing
sorry.
this since freshman year and I didn't know that.
I'm
Because there's a
sorry.
middle
Like
school-
all the 9th and 10th graders do it. So I'm like, okay.
Like, sorry. Oh, you guys are new.
Okay, why are you in a bad mood today?
I'm not in a bad
Yeah, you are.
Just roasting y'all.
Okay. So, all right. So, limiting government power, prohibiting governmental action. So, yeah, that's one of the criticisms of the Texas Constitution is that it's so limiting to the state government. The only way to enact law is to change the Constitution. But considering how large the Texas Constitution is, it's not that hard. I mean, what they do is they wait till the session comes in, and then they just plow through as much as they can before the session's over. Much like federal Congress. So
Oh,
Not a lot of-
those goons.
there's not a lot of stalling that goes on in Austin.
Stalin?
Like stalling, slowing down.
Communism?
No, not Joseph Stalin.
I love that dude.
That's all right. You can.
He
you
was
can
on
keep
the
that to
right
yourself.
track. I'm telling y'all, he's revolutionary.
Yeah, he was on the right track till he, grew up. All right, so.
Grew up.
Well, when he was a kid, he's actually a good guy. He was actually, in fact,
He was good looking, bro. Let me tell you.
he was actually an altar boy, and he really wanted to become an Orthodox priest. And until one day, while he was doing his duties, he dropped a tray like during mass, during the Orthodox mass, and the priest like just ripped him a new one, like chewed him out. And so he was like. So like after that, he like got mad and he swore off
He's like,
Christianity and all this other stuff.
God, and now I'm gonna make a communistic country.
Well, actually, he became a bank robber, but we'll get to that. He became a bank robber.
That is
first.
such a drastic thing. Like you got yelled at once.
Well, that's what he said, right? There's probably some other stuff too, but he kind of blamed that one priest. So I think the thing is, if you're in a position of power, be careful what you say to people, because then one day they might have you starved to death.
Yeah, like
Right.
the guy who didn't let Hitler into the art school. Come on, man.
Yeah, he should.
Bro could have saved us so much trouble.
I know. He was a decent banker, I think.
Just give him a C plus and let him go, bro.
Well, some people take art very seriously.
He was wrong with this, so.
Well, he's probably somewhere now. All right. So, U.S. and Texas constitutions. U.S. powers of national government. National constitution is more flexible. The presidency is stronger, probably not originally intended to be so. Court system simple. Constitution rarely amended. And that's true. That's true. You've seen that yourself. The Texas Constitution. Reserve powers for the states. Well, that actually comes from the federal government. I mean, it comes from the U.S. Constitution, especially the 9th and 10th Amendments. State constitution, less flexible. Like I said, it's restricting. Texas governor is weak. In fact, the Texas governor office is known to be one of the least powerful executive positions for all the states. Our governor has less power than almost all state governors. Court system, complex and confusing. I don't know why, but I know this. I don't want to go to court. Constitution frequently amended. Like I said, they amend this thing every couple of years.
Only Alabama beat them, and I think California.
Hallelujah.
Texas constitutions. We've had 6 constitutions through our history. Texas Declaration of Independence from Mexico issued March the 2nd, 1836. And if you remember, that was at, what was that?
San Jacinto.
No. That was Washington on the Brazos,
Actually,
where we had essentially Mexican Texans get together as a delegation after the arrest of Stephen F. Austin, and they were like, Santa Anna is in full rebellion against the Mexican Constitution. It was the Constitution of, I forgot. And since he suspended the Constitution and arrested Austin, they said, the game's up. We got to fight for our freedom. Now, 7 Mexican states seceded or went to war against Santa Anna. 4 of them gave up immediately. 3 of them fought Santa Anna. 2 of them he crushed in Mexico. They had a rebellion just like Texas did. And he went off and he slaughtered the men who fought him. Anybody who fought him, he'd line them up and shoot them. Texas is the only one that won, but we don't hear about the other ones.
well, that's because Texas is the best.
Well, we were lucky too. We were really, really lucky. Sam
Man, it's 'cause we're cool.
Sam Houston caught him while they were having a siesta and they were drunk and passed out. And so they were just kind of snuck up in their camp and started
And
chopping them up.
he dressed up as a foot soldier.
Yeah, Santa Ana's kind of funny. He's the first person I've ever read about with a cocaine addiction. Like, so like as far as he knows, like he's like the first cokehead. Yeah, he had a lot of dalliances from what I understand. He probably didn't lead to the best decision making. All right,
But
so
he's just like DMX.
Stop.
well, hey, that's not fair. Like,
That was wrong.
actually, I was reading his family said he didn't have an OD, that he actually
Yeah, I
cleaned
mean,
up.
it's pretty hard to OD on crack cocaine.
Because what they said is that he actually had some medication prescribed
Well,
from the
to
doctor.
be fair, if I had a drug overdose, I would hope my family said I didn't have a drug overdose.
I'm just saying. I don't care about him. I really don't. I mean, I'm not really into him. He had a unique voice, but it's not my thing. Yeah, barking like a dog is very unique. All right, Independence won its Battle of San Jacinto, April 21st, 1836. And here we see the dates for the various constitutions. So first we had the Republic of Texas, back when we were our own nation. Then we have early statehood up to the Civil War. And then we had the Civil War Constitution, where we were part of the Confederacy, or the United States, the Confederacy. And then we had the Reconstruction Constitution, which is basically brought on by military occupation. Then we had the Radical Reconstruction Constitution. And this had to do when we had what was called tyranny of the majority. It wasn't the Republican Party. It was a section of the Republican Party that was very vindictive and very understandably angry about the Civil War and from their perspective. Then we have the state constitution, what we have today, which was in complete rebellion to the Radical Reconstruction and Reconstruction constitutions, especially the radical one. Like I said, they had very restricted powers in those. People felt like it was a government put on by essentially a military occupation. And so our current one is like radically opposite from that.
I have a Republic of Texas flag.
Neat. All right, so Republic of Texas Constitution, 1836, modeled after U.S. Constitution. Yeah, that's because we wanted to be part of the United States. Except for our second president, remember Lamar, he wanted Texas to become a great empire, and that didn't work. Well, he tried to invade New Mexico, and the whole army was captured, so it didn't work out. I mean, we kind of messed that one up. And then, it was sad. They all went to like they were either shot or put in a prison in Mexico, and many of them died of disease and starvation.
Chihuahua.
Yeah, well, something like that. All right, so the original state Republic of Texas Constitution allowed slavery and delayed admission to the U.S. It did not originally delay admission to the U.S. They made it the way they did because they hoped to model it the same way that the state-making process was to become a state. If you remember from the Northwest ordinances, you had to have a certain voting population. You had to have a constitution that aligned to the U.S. Constitution. You had to send delegates to the U.S. Well, this wasn't a territory, but they still sent delegates begging Andrew Jackson and his presidents following him to become part of the United States. And eventually it would, But when it did, it's going to kind of kick off the Mexican-American War. Kind of do.
It's a
So,
good thing they did because we're the best.
so hey, I'm glad we're where we're at. Texas constitutions. So, statehood constitution, 1845. This is, of course, after what was her name of our last president? President Jones, I think.
My man.
Irving Jones.
Lowered the Texas Republic flag and raised the American flag in Austin. Bless you. We also had the statehood constitution, 1845, which was influenced by Jacksonian democracy. So Jacksonian democracy is when now Andrew Jackson was the first Democrat president, and this was the idea of having politics influenced by low-income agriculturalists, right? But also by the expansion of the plantation system. And so the whole idea was, how do you get rich quick back then in the South? You get yourself some land, you buy some people, and you grow some cotton or something else. It's going to make you a lot of money. Civil War Constitution 1861 altered previous constitution to join Confederacy and protect slavery. So, of course, when you secede, now, Texas claimed that it wasn't becoming a new government because they were under the theory, like many southern states, that the United States isn't made up by the people, it's made up by the states. And so the state has the right to leave the Union whenever it wants to. And so when it did so, they then joined the Confederacy. And a confederacy is a government, a united government that doesn't govern each other. You just agree in a common defense and a common ability to go to war. There have been other confederacies throughout the past, not just the southern one here in the U.S. Reconstruction Constitution after the war, 1866, this nullified secession. Part of coming back to the United States after the Civil War was that you have to say that leaving the U.S. was wrong and you weren't going to do it again. It also had to do with its war debts, assuming its own war debts, and it had to agree to get rid of slavery. So, okay.
Stop.
Moving on. That was tasteless. All right.
I'm just kidding.
However, certain things really made the North upset. One was, as African Americans started gaining voting rights and even political offices in the South, you're going to see the growth of political violence, terrorism, from the hands of the Ku Klux Klan. And so because of these murders and this abuse and all these things, you're going to have some very, what was seen by the Southerners as very oppressive and vindictive laws brought on against them, and they were forced to have new constitutions. And so this brought on a lot of resent against the North new Constitution. And so then, once Reconstruction was over for Texas, they're immediately going to make a new Constitution that we have today that was all about reducing government authority, even at the state level, and making very slow and hard on purpose. Influenced by the Grange. So the Grange is essentially a farmers movement. They push for farmers' rights, education, things like that. And but it often at times kind of pushed against industry. Rural and urban approval curbs governmental power. So like we said. General features, it has a preamble, 16 articles. As of 2011, 10 years ago, it was amended 467 times. Added levels of detail to avoid abuses of power by governmental organizations. So lots of what we would call checks and balances. I'm not sure what that one is. Oh my gosh. Yeah, you can't read that. But it includes, of course, the Bill of Rights. And remember, like we also have powers of government, legislative department, executive department, judicial department, suffrage. So who gets the right to vote? Remember, in the U.S. Constitution, barring a few amendments, it's up to the states to decide who gets to vote within a state, as long as it's legal according to the U.S. Constitution. Education and free public schools. The U.S. Constitution says nothing about education. Founders didn't think it was up to them. It's the states. It's the states that has their own state constitution that has to do with education. So here they set this up, and now education is made up by the Texas Education Code. So taxation and revenue, county laws, railroads, which is still a big deal today, municipal corporations, private corporations, Spanish and Mexican land titles. Now, this will eventually be deleted, but there are still a lot of families today, like in Arizona, New Mexico, and West Texas, that still have lands that have been in their family since the days of the Mexican government and even up to the old Spanish government. So there are some very old landed families still here in America. Public lands and land office, impeachment process, general provisions, just generic stuff, and modes of amending the Constitution of the state. So. It's a taste one. All right, we'll go through a couple more. All right, specific features. Similar to the U.S. Constitution in many ways, separation of powers, 3 branches. And you know that. We have the executive and the government. We have our Senate and Congress, or House of Representatives for the state. And we have our court systems. Has checks and balances. And we'll see this when we look at the lawmaking process later, especially. Empowering the government while limiting the government. Remember, you limit the government with laws, you limit what they can do, and also protecting individual rights. And that protection of individual rights will expand over time, as we'll see later on with the civil rights movement, getting rid of the old Jim Crow stuff, and so on and so forth. Different from the U.S. Constitution in these ways, less flexible, more limitations on government, and all that. We have a Bill of Rights, equality under the law, religious freedom, due process. You see this mirrors the U.S. Constitution on purpose. Equal Rights Amendment. It's going to come later on. Separation of powers, checks and balances included. And we'll move on to the next part next time. So please keep this in mind, and also understand that this stuff is going to be testable material. Your next test that you will have will be over Texas state government. And dang, man, I want to see. It's not going to be next week. It's going to be a while from now. It's going to be the week after EOCs. So that's like the second week of May. Y'all don't have EOCs. But, so yeah, we're going to have our next test the second week of EOCs. This is only going to be over the state government stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and save it and put this on the Google Classroom. My goal is to have 2 more test grades before the end of the school year. That doesn't mean we're going to have 2 more tests, but we're going to have 2 more test grades. So you're definitely going to have a test second week of May, but I'm not sure what we're going to do for the next one. Maybe I'll have y'all do something like interesting. Open Google Classroom. Hey, folks, but you can use the rest of this class time to do something you take care of. I am going to post an assignment for you, but it's probably going to be on Thursday. So I'm going to have a little article for you to read and give me a little paper for it. So it's just a hint. It's probably going to be another Federalist paper.
Jeez.
So deal with it.
No.
Material.
I need to get my hair trimmed.
You just get her cut.
I'm not cutting my hair.
Yeah.
I'm not getting short hair.
Okay.
Not everyone's insecure about themselves.
I'm not insecure about my hair. I walked around with a bowl cut for like 2 months just now. So did I.
We should all get bowl cuts. Mark, you wanna get a bowl cut with us?
Same thing.
No.
I'm getting a bowl cut.
Please get a bowl cut.
No, my.
All right, folks, talk to you later.
Look like a mushroom.
I used to look like a mushroom in middle school.
Yeah, you did.